Okay, good morning. We're going into part 8 of our series, Human slash Sex Trafficking American Style. Now we've gone into the dark side of human trafficking, but I want to start off with the copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Further disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this video and on the Black Woman Unprotected YouTube channel are those of the host and or of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Black Women Unprotected YouTube channel. Okay, so we're going right into part 8 of this series. We're into the dark side of organ trafficking. Trafficking organs. Okay, and where I had left off at, I was speaking about Chanel Dickerson, who was a commander with the Washington Metropolitan Police Department, who launched a Twitter hashtag, Missing DC Girls. Okay, it's gained a lot of traction on social media, and as a result, a group of congresswomen have also taken the lead in dealing with the crisis of missing Black women and girls. They have demanded that the FBI and the Justice Department dedicate funds and develop policies to address the problem. See, when you're invisible, and that's one of the consequences of being unprotected, so when you're invisible, there is nothing going on that brings about protection for you. There are no laws, there are no statutes, there's nothing. So we're basically on our own out here, in this world. Now, how can communities of color fight this problem? One of the first things we have to do, we have to create that value factor. Because that's one of the things I talked about in the consequences of being unprotected in that series, where I talked about how we're not valued. So if we begin to value the lives of us Black women and girls, and do so to a greater extent than what seems to be what is quite evident today, which is no value whatsoever. We can highlight how alleged sex predators from Jeffrey Epstein to Bill Cosby to R. Kelly, and not to mention Weinstein. So we need to do this. And not only that, our former president of the United States, who's also have this type of an issue. But the United States, as well as our president and pretty much everyone else, has basically shown a disdain, for us. And they don't do anything to let us know that they have our backs. We know they don't have our backs. Nobody have our back except us. So regarding the aforementioned, most of them are being held accountable now, finally. But look at all the years it took for people to come to the realization that something needed to be done. This shows some progress. Okay, but it's not showing anything with regards to us Black women. They have these aggressive search campaigns for those who are missing. But when it's Black women and girls are missing, it doesn't even make the local news. Never mind your Aphrodite Joneses and all these other people, and what's her, Macy Grace or whatever. Never mind any of those people, who sit there and talk about your Natalie Holloways and your Elizabeth Smarts and whatnot. But we don't get any of that kind of coverage because we don't have that value factor. And see, and another thing, we as Black women, we're going to have to teach our children. I've been stressing this, because this group is about Black women empowerment through self-defense. Yes, we have other areas of Black women empowerment, but the fact that we're not protected, self-defense, self-defense, self-defense. We got to put that on the table. We got to put that at the top. So we black women, we must teach our children how to avoid strangers, strange places, you know. We got to teach our children how to stay clear, of parked vehicles and, vans and trucks, moving trucks, whatever, U-Hauls, whatever the case may be. Anything that could be used to create a scenario for an abduction. Because they're being very bold and they're being very brazen, where girls, children are just being snatched up off the street in broad daylight. But see, we got to teach our children and our young girls what to look out for, how to spot trouble and be able to avoid it. We need to also teach our children and our young girls specifically how to defend themselves. Make sure they're wearing good walking shoes, like sneakers or a boot they can use for kicking if somebody tries to grab them. Teach them how to kick, and have a whistle on them, alarm and things of those natures. Okay? And finally, it must be said, with some of those missing people, especially the teenagers, we can't just reduce them to being runaways, even though some may be. But we can't discount that. It cannot be discounted. We have to encourage families to open lines of communications, between our girls and family members. Because when you open up those lines of communication, the girls will be more willing and more inclined to talk, to let us know what's going on, who's bothering them, if they're being stalked, being followed. So those lines of communication needs to be open. Then they can share what their hopes are, what their concerns are, what their fears. We got to teach our girls about pitfalls that may await them in the street. We can't sit up and be like, oh no, you don't want to scare them. You don't want to frighten them. We don't want them to be so scared to go outside. No, damn that. This is not about fear mongering. We absolutely cannot take that approach and be like, oh, I don't want to do fear mongering, so I'm just not going to tell them anything. And I'm just going to pray and hope that they're safe when they leave the house. We got to be more proactive than that. We must. We have to be more proactive. We have to teach our girls. Because I'm going to tell you something. Because by not teaching our girls, we're doing them a disservice. Not only are we doing them a disservice, we're putting them at greater risk. Because we're not putting it out there. We have to. Because if we let our daughters, let our girls know about these pitfalls, the little girls and the teenagers and young women, if we let them know about these pitfalls and these dangers that would come await them in the street, they can be prepared. They can be more inclined to be on guard. They can carry things to protect themselves. Our little girls, they have their little backpacks and stuff. Oh no, you could put a bunch of pencils and rulers and stuff. You could use a ruler as a jabbing device. Put rulers in there and pencils and ink pens and whatnot. Put stuff in it that they can use. For little girls, the teenage girls, give them pepper spray, and give them an alarm. The little girls, you could give them a little alarm or whistle. These are different things that we could give to our daughters, our young girls, so they'll know what to look out for in the street. We have to give them these scenarios. We have to show them, safety tips. A lot of these other things will be forthcoming for our channel. But these are things that we have to do so that our girls can have a greater chance of making it back home safely when they leave. We got to teach them. You don't have to be friendly. You don't have to smile. You don't have to say hello. You don't have to do any of that with strangers. And we also must reinforce our love and our support for them. Okay? We have to let them know that we got their back. We have to let them know that we will step up and we will defend. That we will defend our daughters and our children by any means necessary. We have to put that out there, that we will do that. That we will defend by any means necessary. We can't afford to do anything outside of it. I'm serious, ladies. We just can't do it. We have to put it out there. We have got to put it out there to let our girls know that we got their back. Because when they see that they have support, that will give them confidence. That removes barriers. So we have to reinforce our love for them. Because we have to do it. We have to do it to the point that it could be a barrier to any outside forces that may beckon them. So we definitely have to do that. We cannot afford not to do anything otherwise. I mean, this is serious business here with our daughters. Our daughters are, they're coming up missing. Nobody is saying nothing about it. Nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything with regards to our missing daughters. We have to be the front line of defense. We have to encourage law enforcement and community residents to uplift the status of us black women and young black girls and our young daughters. We have to do it. And we have to do it first. And then go to law enforcement to the community. And we have to show that our girls, so they can avoid being taken for granted, so to speak, if that makes sense. We have to let our girls and women know that they are well thought of and that they do exist in the womb of family and community and protection. We have to let them know that they matter, that their lives matter, that their safety matters. We have to let them know and instill in them that they don't have to smile at strangers, that they can defend themselves against strangers. We have to put that, and we have to let them know that if they have to defend themselves against somebody, they will not be punished for it. If some man goes to grab and they start kicking him or whatever. No, we have to celebrate when they do this. So they'll know that defending yourself has its own rewards. We have to do it. We can't wait for nobody else to do it. We just really can't. We just really cannot. You got thousands of black children that are turning up dead with missing organs. This according to Pan-African Alliance. And like I said, I just want to give that warning that some of the photos here that I'm going to zoom in on this board, are of a very strong nature. And I just want to say that viewers' discretion is highly advised. And so you look at here, those are actual organs, ladies, from this young lady. Those are actual organs being taken out of the body. Here's a mother here who just got the unbearable news of her daughter being found with her organs missing. And then here we're going to be discussing how body brokers make money harvesting organs from black people. Yes, this is an industry. They look at us as a raw commodity. They don't see us as people. Look at there. They don't see us as people. Now we'll be discussing her case. There's 4 cases, but we're only going to talk about 2. And we're just going to talk about 2 because they're concerning black women and girls. And this is, I believe that's case number 3. We're going to go into that. But this is what's going on. This is real. This is real live business out here. We can't leave nothing to chance here. This stuff is serious. They're killing us. And oh yeah, and you got folks that are being killed for their organs. And if you think that this is a third world situation, if you think that this is an overseas situation, you want to think again. You want to think again, ladies. Because right here, you have organ trafficking, American style as well. It's happening here as well. Oh yes, indeed. So we've got to do it. We have to understand. We have to find, why is it black men, women, and children Why are we disappearing? Why are they encouraging black women to have abortions? You better believe, if you're asking yourself, is there a secret agenda? Well, you know what? You'd be right on the money, because it is. There is a secret agenda. The question is there a secret agenda behind the black children being murdered and found missing their organs? You darn right. You better believe it. You might want to consider something. So consider this. Today, in this present day, the need for organs is quite prevalent. And this is according to the American Transplant Foundation, where according to the American Transplant Foundation, which is here in the United States, as it says American Transplant Foundation, there's 123,000 people right here in the United States that are on waiting list to receive an organ. Right now as we speak. And every 12 minutes, a new name is added to the list, with an average of 21 people dying each day due to the lack of organ availability. And because of this, a high demand is fueled by low supply. And this is making organ harvesting right for exploitation. This is a right field, okay? Because anytime when something is in short supply, the value and the demand is on the increase. So this is so much that it's become a well-oiled. This is a well-oiled machine. This is a global, an international racket. And let me tell you some, ladies. Let me tell you who are some of the players in this well-oiled international racket. You have prominent politicians, business people, doctors, nurses, and you have law enforcement. Oh, and by the way, you also have clergy. Better believe it. There are a lot of different stories out here about black folks being persuaded to sell their organs, being tricked into having abortions, or waking up with a kidney missing. Gotta be careful where you go. Somebody could slip you a Mickey. You wake up in a bathtub. You wake up on ice in the bathtub with a note saying seek medical attention. One of your kidneys is gone. And everybody else is gone. You don't know what happened, but you wake up, you got this big cut in your back, and you on ice, and your kidney's gone. But in the cases of, you have 14-year-old Jason Smith, 15-year-old, now Sadaria Davis, 15 years old. She's one of the cases that we're going to be talking about. And then there's little 9-year-old Gloria from Ghana. We're going to be talking about those two cases. And those two girls, Sadaria Davis, who was 15, and 9-year-old Gloria from Ghana, they did not live to tell their stories. So these are the gruesome stories and truth behind the black organ harvesting. Okay, here we go with case number 2. We're going to talk about Sadaria Davis. Okay, what happened with her? She left home one Thursday afternoon and came up missing. And so 2 weeks later, her body was found. Okay? And they tried to cover up the condition in which this young lady was found in. Her organs was missing and her fingers were cut off. All this stuff ended up all over on social media. Because, mainstream media, no, they don't want to talk about that. They want to just brush it over. So this is what we got going on here with this young lady. Actually, it was April 25th. She was last seen leaving her house in East Garfield Park. And she's from Chicago. It's a neighborhood in Chicago. Her friends and family hadn't heard from her since. But on May the 11th, they found her body 6 blocks from home in an abandoned building. And this according to the Chicago Sun-Times. But they didn't give any other information, so little less was known about her death. But there were reports that surfaced up on social media. She was mutilated, and some of her organs was missing. But yet the autopsy was inconclusive. And this according to WGNTV.com. A police spokesman said there was no indications of how she died. Seriously? Her fingers tips were cut off. Organs was missing. And you want to hear something else? Now this one got a little more traction than hers. Her friend, Kanika Jenkins, who's 19 years old, also from Chicago. Her body was found in a walk-in hotel freezer at the Crowns Plaza Hotel. And that was in September. She was 19 years old. She was missing organs too. But they just keep it all on the hush hush. Now here we have another case here. This is most insidious. It's case number 3. Black organ harvesting beyond the United States. This Asian couple, Matthew and Grace Huang, Asian American couple, they adopted a little girl from Ghana, and they starved her to death so that they can sell her organs once she died. Now they adopted a little boy, but they didn't do anything to him. They were arrested in Qatar's capital city in Doha, and this was back in January 2013, after the little girl had died. Yep. So you got to, they be adopting these little black kids for their organs. But this is not the only case dealing with organ harvesting. In 2011, the Catholic online reporter on African refugees attempted to relocate to Israel was having their kidneys and livers removed while they were alive, and then they were being left to die. Then you get a little Somali girl who was reportedly smuggled out of her country to Britain. Britain as in the UK. She was smuggled there for her organs. And this is according to the New York Post last October. So her case is one particularly significant because it was the first time that the authorities saw a child being trafficked specifically for her organs. See, this stuff has been happening under the radar. And I believe one of the reasons why it's been happening under the radar because whose organs are being trafficked, who's coming up missing around here. So that pretty much explains why this stuff is not being spoken about. Then you had another high-profile harvesting kidnapping case involving a humanitarian organization, Zoe's Ark. This is back in 2007, where the president of Chad, Iris Deby, he accused the organization of trying to kidnap 103 children and take them to France to do illegal adoptions so they can take their organs. And at that time, the president told the NPR that their goal was to kidnap and steal these kids from their parents and sell them to pedophile organizations in Europe. Or just straight out kill them and sell their organs. How much you want to bet that that's not happening, that's happening here too? It is. It's going on here too. And then the young girl, she was back in 2013, she was smuggled into the United Kingdom because she thought she was headed for a better life. At least that's what they told her. Oh, there was a walk in the park. But she ended up risk giving up her young life so a white European could live. And see, our organs have more value than white people's organs. So the girl was brought to the UK from Somalia. And they brought her for the sole purpose of removing her organs. And they was going to sell them to people who were desperate for a transplant. But then you have Child Protective Charities warn that the cases were unlikely to be isolated incidents. Traffickers are unlikely to have smuggled a group of children into the country. This is what's going on. Government report. They showed a number of human trafficking victims in the UK. Has risen by more than 50%. This is at a record level now. And in the UK, 371 children were exploited, with the majority of them being used as slaves or sexually abused. And it included 67 children from Nigeria. And there were many other kids from other parts of Africa and the rest of the world. This is global, people. This is some global mess going on. It's a global situation. This stuff is serious. Now we're going to talk about how body brokers make money harvesting organs from black people. There was a man who was scouring for metal on a freezing cold day in March of 2003. He discovered a black man face down in an abandoned row house. The man was dead. When the cops arrived and they turned the man's corpse over, they found a long incision from his throat to his pelvis. His heart, liver, and other major organs, his rib cage and sternum, everything was removed. And that was at the hands of a skilled surgeon. Everything was removed. This happened in 2003. And you guys heard about this? I didn't hear about this. And this is according to True Crime on Mail.com. So according to the New York Post, they described the eviscerated black man about 5'7". He was small frame, about 40 years old. And then that lady was saying, this one lady, Christina, she says, she was a neighbor. And she said, when you live in the ghetto, anything that happens is just something else. You can go in and out, and no one can see you. To someone who wants to do bad things, this place is a palace. So basically, the ghetto, if you will, the black community, if you will, is a hotbed for, any form of insidious, intent, behavior. So he was asked about the nature of the crime. You got really sick people out here who want to keep somebody's internal organs. Or is there a market for this? Yeah, you're darn right there's a market for it. This is quite ghoulish. These people are ghouls. The way they're going about it. And what they're doing. And we get to, and we think, and we don't think about it because we look at the movies like the Hannibal Lecter, or Dr. Jekyll, the mad scientist, Frankenstein. And we think, oh, those are just crazy horror movies. Well, honey, this stuff is, this is like life imitating art. Or art imitating life. The second possibility is already discussed. When a black person is discovered with their vital organs neatly excised. It's more cinematic to imagine those organ harvested black men, women, children were unlucky victims of a real life Hannibal Lecter. But no, that wasn't it. The true reality is that they may have crossed paths with a serial killer, quote unquote, who wants to keep somebody's internal organs. That's far more likely that dead black man who's missing organs, they were sold to a body broker to make some fast cash. There it is. It's a fact. There's a market out here for organs. So you got people being murdered for their organs. There's a company that's now defunct, Arizona company that was called Biological Resource Center, BRC. They used to sell products like a whole body with no shoulders or head. On the company's price sheet, there was a list of body parts for sale. Okay, we're going to go in that in the next segment. I know it's really ghoulish, and it's really sickening. I mean, doing this research and all this information that I have come across, and it's just, my goodness, I couldn't even sleep, because what it shows is that the danger that we are in, it is just beyond what we previously have thought and realized and believed. Because we just didn't think about somebody taking our organs. We just didn't think about it. You know, you get people eating people's body. That's just stuff you hear about in the news or you see it in some horror movie or something. But no, this is really going on here. Ostensibly, the BRC was a medical supplier, for research facilities, university organizations, and hospital training facilities. There's a clear and present need for fresh body parts for surgeons to practice on and for researchers to test their new products and materials on. Okay, that now shuttered company had promised its industrial and academic customers that it was a respectable source and that offered a clean supply of body parts. But when the FBI launched their investigation, and I just want to warn you, ladies, what I'm about to say is really graphic, but it has to be said because we need to know and understand. When the FBI discovered, when they went to the site, the FBI discovered in a bucket of unlabeled severed penises. So that proved that the promise was a lie. That these people are still at it. Can you imagine? Let me say that again. When the FBI, they discovered in a bucket of unlabeled severed penises. Okay. And then there was a stunning 2017 Reuters expose of BRC and the body trade industry in the U.S. It's in the U.S. where they found this unlabeled bucket of severed phalluses, if you will, the male genitalia. That was here in Arizona. So we have a body trade industry in the U.S. When FBI Special Agent Mark Sinar entered the company's Phoenix facility, he was aghast at piles of jumbled body parts. I don't mean to be graphic, but this is what's going on, ladies. There were sawed-off heads, amputated legs, arms, feet, fingers, and genitalia, all piled up like war dead strewn about, with no apparent identification to indicate what bodies they came from or whom they belonged. And in that agent sworn testimony, he said that he personally observed a cooler filled with male genitalia and a large torso with the head removed and replaced with a smaller head, sewn together in a Frankenstein manner. This is real life. This is what's really going on. Straight up mayhem was the work of college interns. BRC hired them and taught them how to use bone saws and chainsaws to remove heads from corpses. The agent was really surprised when he got the intern, or college students really surprised when they got the internship because they didn't have any experience. And this was a 20-year-old Arizona State University junior, Emily Glenn. She's a nutrition major. She told Reuters she just went in the first day and learned things on the job. On her first day, she learned how to remove fingernails from dead persons' digits using a pair of pliers. Later, she was taught how to use a chainsaw to separate a man's head from his shoulders. It wasn't a full-on chainsaw like you see in the movie, but it was a smaller version. And she just went with it. And then there was a corpse of an elderly woman that she did the butcher job on. She said she was expecting lots of blood, but there wasn't much of it. And it came right off. So you have to understand, ladies, when organs can be sold at premium prices on the black market, and since there's a even higher demand, in legitimate medical spaces, capitalism whispers in a dark incentivizes that it tries to convince hospital staff to greedily violate the Hippocratic Oath, to do no harm, urging them to view their patients as a resource and fresh commodity. It's just like chattel slavery when we were brought here. So now we're a commodity, raw commodity here. And of course, when you add the racism into the mix, I don't have to tell you whose bodies are most often the source of said organ harvesting. Don't think I have to tell you. Okay, the same people who are most likely to be denied medical care by a hospital staff or to be put in an emergency room by police violence is us, Black Americans. As the CDC noted in its recent report on disparities of medical care, about 1/4 of Black-only persons, 26.2%, and Hispanic persons, 23.6%, lived in poverty, compared to 10.1% of non-Hispanic white-only persons and 12.0% of Asian-only persons in 2014. Non-Hispanic Black-only children and Hispanic children were particularly likened to live in poverty, 37.3% and 31.9% respectively in 2014. However, though, Hispanics, they get a better lot than we do. They get favorable health care and majority of patterns in comparison to Black folks. So in spite of them having a disadvantaged socioeconomic profile, a pattern termed the epidemiologic paradox, in other words, in spite of being poor, we Black folks, we are far more likely to be denied medical care than anyone else. And I mean than anyone else. And also along these lines, in 2002 study, from the Institute of Medicine called Unequal Treatment, Confronting Racial and Ethnic Disparities in Healthcare, medical apartheid, made comes the awareness that race and ethnicity are significant predictors of quality of healthcare received. Case in point, you got another study from December 2018, Revisiting Death, Implicit Bias in the Case of Jahid Macbeth, examining brain death determinations on how they shape health outcomes. It focused on the case of a Black girl, McMath. She went to Oakland Hospital for a tonsillectomy. I guess get her tonsils taken out. And she ended up dying, due to the hospital's negligent care. It was an elective surgery, a simple cut and snip. But the young lady didn't want to go in for the surgery. She even asked her mother to reschedule it. She asked her doctor if he was qualified to perform it. He promised her he was. But then after he performed the procedure to help her cure her sleep apnea, she was left brain dead. Makes me wonder if she really was brain dead. Her family had to fight to keep the hospital from pulling the plug on her life support. The hospital didn't care that her body showed signs of life. She was, for example, still menstruating. So she's still getting periods. So to the medical staff, she was considered brain dead. To her family, on the other hand, they remained a slim hope that she might emerge from her coma. You have to see, folks, it's best to harvest organs while the patient is still alive. So that's the idea that the candidate is brain dead. Thus the quick trigger finger to declare patients brain dead. I mean, this is just sickening beyond belief. But this is what we're dealing with here. So in the analysis of how Macbeth's race was a determining factor in her medical care resulting in her death, one glaring statistic jumps out. In one of the few areas where Black patients receive more, quote unquote, more care than whites is amputations. That's the only time when Black people receive, quote unquote, more care than white people. Is amputations, when they want to cut your limbs off. Black patients are nearly twice as likely to have a limb excised from their bodies than their white counterparts. You know, they cut their leg off and sell it. At the moment, there's a lawsuit working its way through New York courts that highlights what happens when both the market and desperate people have designs on other people's organs, and how brain deaths are used to help meet the demand. Former Air Force captain and combat veteran, 50 years old. He was a transplant coordinator for the New York Organ Donor Network. He's filed a lawsuit complaint he was wrongfully fired for acting as a whistleblower. In his suit, he alleged that New York Organ Donor Network pressured hospital staff to rush to declare patients as brain dead while they were clearly still alive, so that their organs could be harvested. What he now described as ghoulish, oh, it's very much so. It all hinges on what is called the note. Let me explain what the note is. For organ donor networks, the note, and this is so insidious, the note is a consent form that next of kin is asked to sign that allows the hospital staff to legally harvest organs for donation. In his court filing, McMahon cited 4 examples when hospital staff rushed to rip organs from patients who were, in his opinion, weren't even brain dead. According to the Medical Daily, one example cited details of a 19-year-old man who was injured in a car accident, and he was still struggling to breathe, and he showed signs of brain activity. When the doctors at the Nassau University Medical Center, they declared him brain dead. Declared him brain dead under pressure from the donor network officials, including the director Michael Goldstein, who alleged saying during a conference call, "This kid is dead. You got that?" So they basically murdered him for his organs. Often they don't even bother to tell the aforementioned next of kin of what's going on either. Take the case of another black person. This man died in the hospital from a rare lung condition. The hospital presented his grieving mother, Mary Anderson, a respected local pastor in West Philadelphia, with a consent form. The paper allowed them to schedule an autopsy to determine Vance's cause of death. Okay, they did a bait and switch here. Afterward, the hospital transferred Vance's body to the funeral home, where his corpse could be prepared for burial. But that's when his grieving mother discovered what the hospital had done to her child. The funeral home contacted her, and they told her that they took his eyes, his heart, brain, pancreas. They took every organ he had in his body out of him. And she was like, "Why? I thought they was going to take a piece of his lung to see what he died from." Here's something about the note, ladies. Down in the fine print of the consent form, the hospital staff urged Mary to sign so they could perform an autopsy. The autopsy. There was an important caveat. If she gave her consent to the hospital to perform an autopsy to determine cause of death, the grieving mother also consented to allow the hospital to retain tissue for medical research. That 5-word phrase meant the hospital could rip out any body parts it wanted and sell them into the body trade market. She said, "Ain't no way in the world that they explained to me that they was going to take her son and experiment." She said, they experiment with him and throw his organs in the trash. That I would have consented to that, she angrily told the media. Let me tell you something, ladies. You better redo your wills, your trust, about what to be done with your organs. You want to have that outlined in your will. And don't get on the donor list. I know you may think I'm crazy for saying that. You get on that donors list and you have that donor sticker on your driver's license, they'll kill you out there on the streets. These cops, they'll set you up. The DMV, all of them, they're all everybody is in on it. You don't want to put that donor. You don't want to have that donor card on your driver's license. Cop pull you over and they see that. You won't be around too much longer after that, because they're gonna flag you. Then all of a sudden you in an accident, and then you get declared brain dead, and they take all your organs. Nope, you better put it in your will what's to be done with your organs. If you got family members that are sick or whatever, or you know somebody on dialysis or whatever the case may be, you can have it will. You can will your organs, to people. You can will your organs. They're yours. You get to decide what to do with them. May want to look into it. Donate a kidney, buy the new iPad. I mean, quite the dystopian sales pitch. And this is an advertisement. Chinese body broker who spoke with The Guardian. This back in 2012. He was offering customers as much as $3,000